Jack the Ripper, Shadows of Whitechapel. The night of August 31st, 1888, in London's East End was colder than usual. The gas lamps along the narrow alleys of Whitechapel cast eerie shadows on the walls, and a thin fog crept along the cobblestone streets. Mary Ann Nichols, known to her friends as Polly, wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders as she navigated through the darkened streets, her eyes darting nervously around. In the dim light, Polly passed the dark outlines of closed market stalls and shuttered windows. The taverns had long since emptied, leaving only the sounds of distant carriages and the occasional drunken shout to pierce the silence. She paused at a corner, glancing back to see if she was followed. It was then that a tall, dark figure emerged from the shadows. He moved with an unsettling calmness, his footsteps silent against the stones. By dawn, news of a gruesome discovery had spread throughout Whitechapel. In a dimly lit corner of Buck's Row, the body of Mary Ann Nichols was found. A small crowd gathered, kept at bay by police constables. The onlookers' faces reflected a mix of horror and grim fascination. Police inspectors moved through the scene methodically, their faces set in grim lines as they covered the body and began their investigation. Detectives interviewed witnesses in hushed tones, jotting notes in their small, worn notebooks. The ground was littered with remnants of the night. Discarded papers and a broken bottle that glinted under the early morning sun peering through the mist. Inspector Frederick Aberline, tasked with leading the investigation, was known for his sharp intellect and methodical approach. His office, a small, cluttered room filled with the tools of his trade, became the center of the investigation. Maps of London, particularly Whitechapel, covered one wall, each location marked with pins. Letters purported to be from the Ripper were spread across his desk, their taunting words scrawled in a jagged hand. Aberline sat at his desk, pipe in mouth, poring over the details of the case. Each piece of evidence seemed to only deepen the mystery, the elusive nature of the assailant taunting him from the shadows of his thoughts. The Ripper's continuing freedom brought palpable fear to the streets of London. Shops in Whitechapel closed at dusk, and the usual bustle of nightlife stilled to a tense quiet. In a dimly lit pub, a group of women gathered, their conversations a mixture of rumors and whispered warnings. Their faces, illuminated by the flickering light of oil lamps, showed a mixture of fear and defiance. They spoke of the murders, each detail shared with a shiver, and speculated on the identity of the Ripper, their theories as varied as they were chilling. The discovery of another victim's body by the name of Annie Chapman on September 8, 1888, in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street, intensified the terror. The scene was horrific, with the early morning mist mingling with the stark realities of the murder. A solitary police constable stood guard, his face a mask of professional detachment, yet pale under the brim of his helmet. The courtyard was small, enclosed by the backs of grimy houses, the ground muddy and littered with debris. The air was thick with the odors of the city, damp, decay, and death. In the cluttered confines of his office, Inspector Aberline receives a mysterious letter. The handwriting is jagged, the tone taunting. It contains cryptic references that suggest the author knows details about the murders that were never released to the public. Aberline, along with his team, analyzes the letter, trying to decipher any hidden meanings or clues that might lead them to the perpetrator. As the inspector ponders over the letter, a junior officer brings in a blood-stained piece of cloth found near the crime scene of Annie Chapman. The cloth, potentially part of the killer's attire, sparks a new lead in the investigation. The forensic methods of the time are primitive, but Aberline is determined to use every available resource to track down the owner of the cloth. A breakthrough comes when a witness comes forward, claiming to have seen Annie Chapman talking to a man on the morning of her murder. The witness, a local butcher, describes the man as well-dressed and well-spoken, with a distinct foreign accent. This description contradicts the prevailing theory that the Ripper must be a deranged local, perhaps someone familiar with the area's dark alleys and hiding spots. Inspector Aberline arranges for the witness to meet with a police artist who creates a sketch based on the butcher's description. This sketch is then circulated amongst the police and posted in public areas, hoping that someone might recognize the mysterious figure. As the investigation progresses, another murder occurs. Elizabeth Stride is found in a narrow alley, her throat cut. The brutality of the attack matches the Ripper's known methods. This time, however, a potential suspect is seen fleeing the scene by multiple witnesses. Described as a tall, thin man wearing a dark coat and carrying a leather bag, this figure becomes the focus of a city-wide manhunt. Inspector Aberline organizes nighttime patrols and sets up checkpoints throughout Whitechapel. The police question dozens of men who match the description, but each lead turns cold. The anxiety within the community reaches a fever pitch, with locals suspecting each other and the streets becoming increasingly deserted at night. As public pressure mounts, Inspector Aberline faces criticism from the press and higher-ups. Headlines question the effectiveness of the police, and rumors swirl about possible cover-ups and police incompetence. In a heated meeting, Aberline defends his team's efforts, arguing for more resources and time to catch the killer. Meanwhile, the community of Whitechapel organizes its own safety patrols, with volunteers walking the streets at night, trying to protect the vulnerable. Despite their efforts, a sense of helplessness pervades, with the Ripper still at large and the threat of another murder looming over everyone. The years following the Ripper murders saw Whitechapel slowly transform, but the shadow of those dark days lingered. Inspector Frederick Aberline retired, his spirit wearied by the unsolved mysteries that had dominated the latter part of his career. The streets of Whitechapel, once the hunting ground of London's most infamous killer, gradually filled again with the hustle and bustle of daily life. Yet, the tales of 1888 remained, woven into the fabric of the area's history, whispered in the pubs, and remembered in the quiet corners of the night. Aberline, spending his twilight years in a modest house on the outskirts of London, often found his thoughts drifting back to the case that had eluded him. He pondered over what he could have done differently, the clues he might have missed, and the elusive figure of the Ripper, forever a ghost in his past. Despite the passage of time, the identity of the killer remained a mystery, fueling endless speculation and research. In Whitechapel, a small exhibit in the local museum dedicated to the Ripper case became a point of fascination for tourists and historians alike. Items from the era, copies of the taunting letters, and maps of the murder sites were displayed, each telling a part of the grim story. The exhibit, though small, served as a solemn reminder of the lives lost and the terror that had once gripped the neighborhood. The legacy of the Ripper also impacted law enforcement and forensic science. The frustrations and limitations experienced by the police during the investigation spurred changes in investigative techniques and procedures. The Ripper case underscored the need for better forensic methods, leading to advancements that would later help solve crimes that might have otherwise remained mysteries. As Aberline aged, he received occasional letters from amateur sleuths and authors, each proposing new theories about the Ripper's identity. He read each with a mix of interest and skepticism, responding politely but with no real hope that the mystery would ever be truly solved. The story of Jack the Ripper, with its blend of fear, mystery, and tragedy, became a dark chapter in London's history, but also a catalyst for change. It reminded the city of the depths of human depravity, but also of the enduring human spirit to seek truth and maintain justice, no matter how elusive the answers might be. If you found this video informative, kindly give us a like, share, and click subscribe, as this motivates us to produce more exciting content. You can always join the discussion by dropping your comments in the comments section. Don't forget to switch on the notification bell to receive alert when we drop new content.